Welcome to You Are Intuitive, a refreshing series of interviews featuring candid, intimate, and grounded conversations about developing and using intuition in the real world. I am Dana Mahacek, and my guest today is Tahlee Rouillon. Tahlee is music composer extraordinaire at Sonessence. She offers peace seekers an easy way to achieve inner peace with a sonic shortcut called meditones. Meditones encourage the brain to adopt specific wave patterns when they're heard through a pair of headphones. And when these meditones are woven into Tahlee's soulful compositions, the result is pure inner resonance and relaxation. When she isn't blissing out to music, you can find Tahlee wandering about the rainforest, eating good food with good friends, and laughing out loud, really loud. When you hear it, you'll know. Tahlee also helps soulpreneurs make their own meditations, and she hangs out on Instagram a lot. It was such a joy to have this discussion with Tahlee, and I trust that you'll enjoy watching or listening to it too. Thank you for being here and enjoy. All right, I'm so excited to speak with you today. Tahlee, welcome to this conversation. I can't wait to dive into all things intuition with you.
Yay, thank you, Dana.
I want to start off, first of all, by mentioning that for those of you who don't know you, you are an immensely, vastly creative person. And I was wondering for you, in your own experience or in your own opinion, how connected are creativity and intuition? Are they the same thing? Are they different things? Or what's your experience with that?
Oh, that's such a great question. For me personally, I think intuition and creativity definitely go hand in hand, but I do think that they are separate things.
And
yeah.
Go ahead. I was just going to ask, how are they separate?
Yeah, sure. So I would, I suppose, explain intuition as a form of deep inner knowing. And that can apply to so many facets of your life, not just a creative process. And then for me, creativity is channeling that deep inner knowing and like being willing to go into the mystery in order to create something, whether that is music or art or dance or theatre or, you know, however you choose to express yourself. And so I think that being able to tap into your intuition, trust your intuition, follow its guidance, really does help with creativity. But I've also used intuition in so many other areas of my life too. So, yeah.
And you expressed that so eloquently. I know that it was kind of like a surprise question that I didn't prep you on before, but the way that you answered it, actually, as you were speaking, it's like I could feel your music in your answer, and it just, the way that you express the similarities and the differences, it's like, oh, your music makes so much sense too. Like it's like the musical equivalent of just this eloquence in expressing yourself.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. That's lovely.
Well, first of all, do you consider yourself to be an intuitive person? I imagine from your previous answer that you do.
Yes, I do now. I certainly didn't always feel this way. I feel like my intuition has really grown and developed over many, many years. And yeah, I think I was an intuitive child, but I didn't know what it meant, or I didn't trust the messages that I was getting. And so I didn't really have a language to explain my experience. And so I really kind of dismissed a lot of it. But then as I was growing up, I had some really powerful experiences that really taught me that my intuition is very strong and is very powerful, and that good things happen when I trust it.
Can you describe one of those experiences or a few of them, depending on how long they are?
Oh gosh, sure. I've got so many now. I think one of my really defining moments as a young woman with my intuition was actually with an ex-boyfriend. And when I first met him, I thought that he was in a relationship with this other girl. And then I found out that no, they were just best friends and they weren't together, and he was interested in me. And I was like, well, that's good, because I quite like him. And so we ended up getting together. And one weekend he decided to go away with a friend, not this girl, a different friend of ours. And he was being picked up from this girl's house to go away for the weekend. So I went over to say, you know, have a great weekend and see you later. And the most bizarre thing happened when I said goodbye. So he and this girl were standing in the doorway, and I'd walked outside and I turned around to, you know, wave goodbye. And it was almost like reality was, how do you explain it? Like transposed over the situation, like a whole new reality emerged in like an instant. And I felt like I was saying goodbye to them as a couple, and that my relationship with him had never existed.
Oh, wow.
And it was just like, what the hell's that about? I was just like, okay, bye, see you later. You know, I was like 20 years old. I had no idea what was going on. I drove home, and anyway, a few weeks later, you know, we were really struggling, and he decided that he didn't want to be in the relationship anymore, which, you know, I was very sad about. And it came out that he had actually been cheating on me with this girl for a very long time. Oh. And it was like, and I was like, damn it, I knew it. And I didn't listen. Yep.
And that is, like, you bring up such an important point about the relationship between intuition and fear, or intuition and a lack of trust, or an unwillingness to trust. Sometimes intuition comes through in the form of a message or guidance that we don't really want to hear that, or we don't really want to acknowledge it. But in your experience, now that you have kind of stacked up all of these intuitive moments, how do you move forward now? Say if you're given guidance, or you get this impression of something that's like not exactly what you want to hear, but you know it's coming from that intuitive space. How do you now move forward with that, or how do you reconcile that?
Sure. You know, look, I think there have been plenty of times in my life that I have had an intuition that I have chosen to ignore.
Yes.
And, you know, I mean, we have
too.
free will. Yeah. Right. And this is the thing about intuition, is that you don't have to follow it. There's nobody holding a gun to your head saying you must go down this path. You have free will. You can choose to ignore your intuition if you like. It's just that you have nobody else to blame, you know, when things turn out the way that you kind of knew that they would. And so if you accept that, like, I'm, you know, I'm being told like not to trust this person, or I'm being told to wait for something that I really, really, really want to do, and I don't want to have to wait, and I want to just do it right now. And you go, you know what? Stuff it. I'm going to do it. That's just fear talking or whatever. And you choose to ignore it. That's fine. That's fine. And look, maybe things work out a bit differently. Maybe they work out exactly as you predict or your intuition predicted. But again, it's about ownership and agency, and you deciding whether or not you are going to trust yourself, trust your guidance, trust your intuition enough to follow it, and also to accept the consequences that happen when you don't. Yeah.
And also, you can accept the consequences either way. Like, you can reap the rewards,
yes,
whether you choose to follow it or whether you choose to ignore it. Sometimes
totally.
It feels like just desserts that you're reaping,
yes.
and taking
Absolutely.
responsibility for.
Absolutely.
And yeah, I know, just from following a bit of your journey online, and I know with my own journey too, you've been called or you've been guided to do some pretty amazing things, and also some pretty, I would imagine, stressful things or difficult and challenging
terrifying
things. Yeah.
Yes.
And for people who are, I guess, on the brink of understanding themselves as an intuitive person and as this energetic being who has this inner compass and who has inner guidance, what sort of, I guess, steps or practices or resources would you recommend for people who are like just at the baby step stage and like not really wanting to go straight from, oh, I'm not intuitive, to like, oh my God, my intuition is asking me to like move to another country or break up with this long-term relationship? What are some kind of like simple ways to start out and to start strengthening those intuitive muscles, would you say?
Yeah, definitely. I think if you are just starting on the journey of learning to distinguish your intuition from fear or from your inner critic or from other people's opinions, I think, meditation is a very core way for you to be able to quiet down all that background noise so that you can really start to tune in. Because the thing is, sometimes, like in that example with, seeing reality transform before my eyes, intuition can be instant and very powerful and quite overwhelming. But sometimes it's really not. Sometimes those messages are very slow and very quiet. And, I've had to go into meditation quite regularly to find answers for things. Sometimes my intuition gives me answers when I didn't even ask a question. And sometimes I really, really desperately want to know the answer and I have to sit and wait. So I would say definitely practice meditation so you start to become familiar with what is mine, what is other people's, what are the other the other voices that I hear, whether they are my inner child, my inner critic, perhaps some kind of spiritual guide. Learn to be able to distinguish between those, and that takes time and practice. Yeah.
And I know in my own experience, and perhaps it's similar for you in your experience, because I have done quite a bit of work on distinguishing between my inner critic voice and what I call like the spirit voice or the source voice, just this like divine whisper. And in my experience, anything, well, obviously if it's mean, it's not coming from the spirit or source voice.
Yeah.
But I also find if there's this, if there's pressure or this urgency or that kind of FOMO, like fear of missing out, you have to do this now or else. Usually I find that that's not coming from spirit voice either, because as I'm saying this, there have been times where I do get a clear intuition that's like, do this now.
Mm-hmm.
But even still, the quality of that voice isn't
Mm-hmm.
this like, or else, or like, you better do this because whatever this is on the line. It's just this like soft inner knowing, can be very clear. How do you, I guess, what are the traits or the personalities of these different voices, and how can you distinguish between them for yourself?
Oh, I'm totally in agreement with you. I think the soul voices are so loving and so kind and so present, and there is this sense of just pure unconditional love and acceptance. And I always feel like the message is, it's not loaded with anything.
No.
It's always just like, here's the answer. You can have it if you want it. It's not information to like beat yourself with, which is what a lot of those other inner voices do. Because the thing about those voices, the thing about the ego, and all of those kind of fearful parts of ourselves that have been, fractured off through experience, all come from a place of self-protection.
Yeah.
And that's what fear is. That's what the ego is. We are trying so desperately to not experience any kind of pain.
Yes.
And so everything about fear is to stop you from experiencing that. And yet, I don't think any soulful voice would advocate for self-harm or harm of others. It may ask you to feel uncomfortable. So, for example, it might ask you to wait when you're feeling impatient. It might ask you to show up and be more visible, which is a bit confronting. It may ask you to do things that you don't feel quite ready for, but again, you have agency.
Yes.
But as you say, there's no or else.
Yeah.
There's nothing attached to it. When the soulful guidance comes in, there's nothing attached to it. Whereas with the fearful voices, it's always like, if you don't do this now, you're going to miss out. Or if you show up further, people are going to judge you, and you're going to get haters, and you're going to get trolls, or, and that's, I think, how you can distinguish between the two voices. If there is any, as you say, a sense of urgency, because underneath all of these things, there is any kind of level of fear, you know that is not soulful.
Yeah. And just like conditions being attached to it, that like, you'll only be okay if you do this, or if you don't do this.
Exactly.
And there's, I find that the soul voice, or the spirit or source voice, it's just this purity, right? And like you say, it's this, it's all
Talk about strong intuition.
She's like, curse you neighbors bringing groceries home. Chloe, it's okay. It's okay. There's a purity to that voice of the soul. There's also like neutrality, like you were saying. It's not like overly positive or saccharine, and it's not negative or critical. It's just like this non-attached, neutral, fully accepting assessment. Like, this is the, not like objective truth, but like, there's no veils, there's no layers, there's no conditions or anything like that.
Absolutely.
And like you say, it does take a cultivation, like a meditation practice, being willing and able to just be still, be silent. And one of the things that I will add to that, that's helped me personally to touch that voice and to hear that voice, has been disconnecting from social media every so often, just like taking a break from all the other voices that are out there. Have you ever tried that?
Honestly, I haven't ever taken like a full break, but I definitely limit my social media in certain ways. So it may be that, you know, I might post to Instagram quite regularly, but I don't scroll through and look at other people's work. Or perhaps I will turn on Self-Control, which is an app that blocks social media for a period of time. So perhaps if I'm in the studio and I'm like, right, I really want to just focus on music today, I'm going to block out all of these distractions. And it's just easy to just click a button and they're gone. Yeah. So, I mean, I've never felt called to really, I suppose, detox or like take media breaks. And I totally respect people who do. And yeah, but I feel like the way that I engage, I know in my body, like I can feel in my body, like I will feel in my body, like, stop scrolling, like get off immediately. And I'm like, oh, shut it down, go make a cup of tea. Yeah.
With that, with like social media and the online world, like we're in such a, I love the internet. I love the fact that I'm in Canada and you're in Australia. We're on different days in the calendar, and yet we're still able to connect and to have this conversation. But with that connectivity and with that accessibility, I've also experienced personally just this, it's easier to compare your own everything with everyone and anyone else. And do you ever find, just personally, that you ever feel, you know, not intuitive enough or not creative enough or just not enough in general?
Oh, every time I sit down to write music. You know, I have this gripping fear, like every single time I sit down to write, that nothing will come, or that everything I've written is a fluke, or maybe I'm all dried up and, you know, I've done everything, or everything's already been done anyway. So it and you know, Brené Brown talks a lot about, you know, moving through a process of what she calls rising strong. And she talks about the creative process. And, you know, you start with this blank canvas and then you end with this masterpiece. But in the middle, it's what she calls the messy middle. And even though I have a very strong spiritual practice, and even though I'm deeply intuitive, I am not immune to my own humanity.
None of us are.
None of us are. And so I still find it sometimes quite laborious or frustrating or disappointing, or like, you know, I'm filled with a lot of self-recrimination or self-doubt. And so, and I've learned to accept that. And I've found that the more I acknowledge, oh, that's right, this is just part of the process, like just, you know.
I remember this part, yeah.
I remember this bit, yeah. Go and sit down and meditate, you'll be fine. And it's kind of annoying that it happens every single time, but I don't get to bypass the messy middle, unfortunately. Or maybe fortunately, because that's where the magic happens.
Yeah. And when you are experiencing those, you know, that self-doubt or any sort of comparison, again, just the practices of like going to meditate or making yourself a tea or just putting on your app and not looking externally, but turning within, that's what helps you make it to the other side, or make it through that messy middle in hopefully one piece.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, for me, a lot of the comparison comes from other music. And obviously, I love music. I listen to it constantly. And I really have to be mindful of not going down that rabbit hole of like, oh, I wish I wrote music like this other person, or or they're better than me, or oh God, I'm such an amateur, and or maybe I need this new shiny toy, and then that will make me a better composer and producer. So like thankfully, mostly, and there have definitely been times that I've been triggered by social media, but mostly it doesn't trigger my FOMO. And when it does, like you said, I try to step out, focus internally. I might even talk to some close friends about, the fact that I've been triggered, and they sort of, help talk me back from the ledge. And but FOMO is 100% real, and I think if you are struggling with your own intuition and feeling like you're being bombarded with so many different conflicting messages, take a break from social media.
And I find too, like specifically in the realm of intuition, like we were talking about your creative process before, and like my creative output isn't good enough, or my compositions won't be unique or profound or well executed enough. And I find that the same happens with intuition a lot, that there's so many people who are like, maybe see someone else who can like see auras or communicate with spirits, or whatever magical intuitive thing that they can see somebody else doing, and then feeling like, well, if I don't have that capacity, or I can't see spirits, or I can't see colors, or whatever it is, that I must not be intuitive, or I must not be intuitive enough. And I know quite a few of the people that I've worked with before, we'll get reading after reading after reading after reading, and like read horoscope after horoscope, full moon report, just all of these different things, which is stemming from a belief that they're not intuitive, or that they're not intuitive enough. Do you feel personally, or do you believe that everybody is intuitive, or that we all have this capacity to have the answers within ourselves?
I really do. And it's kind of like the long answer is yes with a but. Yes, absolutely. I do believe that everybody has a sense of intuition. I also think that intuition is honed through experience, and that intuition is also very unique and distinct to your own self. And so as you say, some people can see auras and connect with multiple spirit guides and hear colors and all kinds of incredible things. That's not the case for me at all. Intuition comes to me through my emotions. So like a feeling.
Yes.
And it's quite subtle, or it will come to me through almost like thought visions. So like not through like a dream or actually seeing something, but almost like I have a thought, or like almost like a daydream or imagination, but it's a thought pattern. And that's how my intuition speaks to me. And again, it's taken me a long, long time to recognize those things and trust those things, especially because, I am a highly sensitive person. Yes. And I've, battled with a lot of anxiety and depression throughout my adult life, probably even as a child, and didn't know what that was. And I would say that if you do get mixed messages and you think, for example, I don't want to go to this ex because I don't feel good about it. That's fine. It doesn't really matter whether it's intuition or fear, right? It's about honoring where you're at Now, if that message comes through and you're like, oh, say for example, I really want to go to this party, but I'm feeling really awkward and I just want to kind of like stay at home and Netflix and chill, and I don't know, like, you can take an honest assessment and say, can I feel comfortable, living out my values of wanting to connect with other people and, be okay that it's going to be a bit uncomfortable and I'll probably feel awkward? Or is it, what, my energy is so drained right now, even the thought of leaving the house is just, I can't. You can honor that. That's okay. Yeah, that's okay. Yeah.
When you were talking about the, I guess the subtleties and the distinctions between these motivations behind why we might choose or not choose to do something, I was reminded of, I think it's actually, I forget who was discussing it, but about two different types of fear. That like there's one fear that is like an actual, like, this is danger, this is like protection, like you were talking about earlier. And then there's also the fear that's like, this represents expansion for me, this represents taking a risk, this represents, going out of my comfort zone and growing and evolving. And that would be like another one of those voices when you're meditating and when you're going within, to just ask yourself and kind of tune in, like, is this the fear that's telling me stay away because this is dangerous? Or is this the fear that's like, stay away because I'm afraid of what might be on the other side of this expansion or this change or something new? I think
absolutely.
I think it might have been Tara
Moore.
Yeah. You took a class with her, right?
I did. Yeah, I did her Playing Big course, and I've read her book and I adore her. I recommend her to everybody. And you're absolutely right. She does talk about the two different types of fear, because in that moment, when you can see the difference between those two states, you can make a choice in how to respond. And so perhaps you need, a team of people to help support you energetically, emotionally, physically, to feel comfortable to become more visible in your space. Perhaps you need to, talk with a therapist, to, fortify yourself and reality check yourself as well. Because it's very easy to get, a bit lost in the rabbit hole of like, what does this mean? And trying to attribute like meaning to like every little thing.
Everything. I do that all the time.
Totally. Overthinking is a skill of mine. So yeah, I think being able to recognize those two states and then being able to choose wisely your response, and it will be imperfect. Absolutely. You'll make mistakes and you wish that you would have listened and, gone down one road and not the other, or you wish that you said yes when you said no, or vice versa. And that's just experience. It's,
And I find personally too that that experience, it builds up evidence that you can kind of look back on in the laboratory of your life, so that you can make future choices based on the results of previous experiments that have come to you. And I also believe too that that whatever's meant for you is yours, that you can't miss it. You also can't rush it or force it, but you're not going to miss the boat of something that's actually meant for you. And whenever I find myself going down that rabbit hole of fear, or just feeling like that urgency that I have to like do this now or I'll never be able to have this chance again, just go, like, stepping away, going within, and just reminding myself that what's meant for me is mine, that is like one of the most comforting and self-soothing practices that I have to help navigate those kind of tricky or FOMO situations.
Yeah, absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
If people watching this are kind of wondering what the next steps to take for them would be with developing their intuition, it sounds like, just from everything we've talked about, that in your opinion and in your experience, that having that meditation practice has been kind of the key or the touchstone to help build those muscles. Would there be any other sort of practices or rituals or even resources or books that you would recommend?
Oh gosh, yeah, absolutely. I personally really love working with tarot and oracle cards, not in the sense of like divination and like trying to understand, okay, well, what does the future hold? I use it more as a tool for inner reflection. Excuse me. I think that anything that can get you out of your analytical mind and into the more subconscious, intuitive mind is going to be really, really useful to hone your intuition. And that's why the oracle and the tarot cards are so useful, because they don't, I believe that they don't necessarily show you the future. They show you your inner world. They reflect back at you what is really going on. And I have done like, you know, full tarot card spreads about a job that I was really struggling with. And every single card was like, leave the job, like, you get out, run away, like
abort. Yeah,
totally. And yet it still took me weeks to hand in my resignation, because I didn't want to listen. I didn't want to pay attention because I was scared. I just was genuinely scared. But it's I can look back now at those experiences and laugh and, you know, go, oh, did it again, should have listened. Like, yeah. And also any other tool that is going to help you develop your own self-awareness, emotional intelligence, and, you know, help you develop a really strong sense of self. So things like journaling. I really like the book The Artist's Way, really popular book about tapping into creativity and intuition, sort of as, I think, as a byproduct of that. And also, I know that we've sort of said that creativity and intuition are separate, but I think that creativity is also a really good pathway into intuition.
Yes.
And so even if you can do things like painting or drawing or writing, you know, read books about creativity, like Liz Gilbert's Big Magic. Those kinds of things are just going to help expose you to those more intuitive gifts, and kind of just take the volume down on the sort of cerebral thinking. Yeah.
And what I found too, because I am like the queen of cerebral thinking, and it took me a relatively long time, up until about 2 years ago, to actually turn that volume down, because I was like reading all the books and learning all the things and like understanding, even with tarot and oracle, like I would devour the book about tarot meanings, but to kind of flip the switch between the cerebral and the intuitive or creative sides, actually like doing the activity, or actually like pulling the card, and instead of rushing right to the guidebook, just like sitting with it, or doing your meditation practice, or doing the journaling, like the actual pen to paper,
Mm-hmm.
whatever the actual activity is,
Mm-hmm.
to me that's been the key, because I knew so much about intuition before, but until I actually like did a reading or like pulled a card, it was all still up here until I had some kind of outlet for it.
Absolutely. And I think a lot of body work and energy work is also really, really useful. So maybe going to see like a kinesiologist, doing, even just like a lounge room dance party, like put on some tunes and just get out of your head and into your body and, shake it off, and or have a shower. Like, you always, the ideas come when you're not thinking about it. And I love, there's a line from Mad Men that Don Draper, he gives advice to a young protege who's trying to come up with a new ad campaign. And he said, go away, think about it deeply, and then forget it.
Mm-hmm.
And I love that, because it really speaks to that, again, that deep internal knowing, that subconscious knowing. That's the intuition. It doesn't, even though it might come through a thought pattern or like a mental image, it doesn't come from that, gears grinding, cerebral, like over analyzing part of the brain.
And I had an experience actually speaking about that, like thinking about it deeply and then forgetting about it. One of my ex-partners told me a riddle, and I hate riddles that I can't figure out. I hate riddles that I can't figure out. And it was this, I don't remember exactly what the riddle was, but when he told me this riddle, and instantly my gears were just like trying to figure it out, like must figure it out. And then he made matters worse by being like, don't think about it too hard, like it's easy. And he said, every 4-year-old can answer this riddle. And I was just like, don't say that, that's like making it way worse. And I spent a few minutes like burning rubber in my mind. And then I was like, I don't care about your riddle. I'm like, I don't even care what the answer is. I want to do something different. And then it was like an hour and some later, and we were just about to fall asleep. And out of nowhere, I was like, the answer is nothing, because that was the answer to the riddle. I said, the answer is nothing. And then I remember he smiled, and we both like literally instantly fell asleep. And then in the morning I was like, that was so cool, actually. Like, it was, once I had taken it completely out of my mind, that it just like dropped in. The answer is nothing. Yeah, I felt so cool.
Oh, that's so great. I love it. Look, defeat is a form of surrender. Like,
I was like, screw it, I hate this game.
Let go.
Exactly. I didn't care about it anyway, right? Meanwhile, I was like super bothered by not knowing the answer that 4-year-olds could figure out. Well, Tahlee, it's been so lovely having this conversation with you. And before we go, I just wanted to ask if people are wanting to learn more about your work, and if people want to get their hands on some of your amazing music that makes me cry all the time. Where can they find you online?
Absolutely. So they can find me at sonnescence.com. It's SONESENCE. You can sign up to the Love Letter list and get a free Meditones track. Meditones music is the music that I write, and it helps you produce more relaxed brainwaves when you listen to them with headphones. So really, really great for when you're wanting to like go deep and tap into that intuition. And I've got a very special discount code for your subscribers too. So look out for that.
And everybody who's listening should get them all.
Oh.
Every single album. I just want to tell quickly that like whenever you release a new album and I get it on like day one, as soon as I hit play, it's just like automatically the tears start falling like nonstop. And it usually takes me like one or two listen throughs before I can like listen to it without weeping. But it's this beautiful, it just feels like so cathartic and so healing and so like nourishing on this soul level to hear your music. And the added benefit is that it does have these meditones in them, so it is helping your brain get into a more relaxed state. But even without that, it's just your energy going into it and your just spirit being infused in that music. It's absolutely gorgeous.
Oh, thank you so much, darling. That truly means the world to me. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Well, thank you again for being here. And I would recommend that everybody go check you out.
Thanks, Dana.
Take care. Big love.
Big love to you.